All right, good morning, traders. It's April 28th, 2026. My name is Coach Carignan. I'm the lead instructor here at the BYOB Trading Room. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody out there in podcast land, digital land, cyber land. Thank you for following, liking, and subscribing to my content and my channels. Appreciate that. Love that. Thank you for the kind words. Big shout out to the people that share the content. Bob Jordan, John Jordan, Kathy, Sarah, Roasted, Ed Carter, Rick Sadler, everybody. Appreciate that. Helping get the good word out there to the World Wide Web. Spread the good news. All right, trying to help traders around the globe. Let's take a peek at what happened yesterday in the U.S. markets. All right, so my SPY pivot this morning going to be 712. Above it, I'm a bull. Below it, I'm a bear. I think SPY is below 712 right now. I'm not sure. Haven't looked at it. All right, T2123 and SPY made new all-time highs yesterday. Diamond Dow made an outside day. That's a higher high, lower low. Closed inside a bullish trap and over the 17. QQQ made an inside day. That's a lower high and a higher low. Closed over a bullish trap and over the 17. FNGU, IWM, higher highs, higher lows. Closed over bullish traps and over their 17 EMA. SPY closed with 2-hour uptrend and a 10-minute uptrend. Gold made a lower low, a lower high, closed under a bearish trap and under the 17 EMA, still in an uptrend. Silver, same thing, lower high, lower low, closed under a bearish trap under the 17 EMA, still in an uptrend. Both silver and gold still in uptrends, all right, but dysfunctional uptrends because they're not moving up. They're kind of moving to the right or melting down. USO, nice comeback on USO. Made a higher high, higher low, closing over a bullish trap and over the 17 EMA. UNG made a higher high and a higher low, closing under a bearish trap. Even with a higher high and the higher low, UNG continues to disappoint. All right, closing under the bearish trap and under the 17. US dollar index in a daily downtrend closed near 98.47 area. SPY max pain for today, 713, with a put to call ratio of about 1.9 puts for each call that expires today at 4:15. Remember, those index options expire at 4:15. Security options expire at 4. If this is your first time seeing this page, okay, everything over here under the bulls column, these are all in daily uptrends over the 17 EMA. These over here under the bears column are all in daily downtrends, daily downtrends under the 17 EMA. If they got a little star next to them, all right, asterisk, star, okay, it means they're building out a bull flag. Okay, this would be a bull flag, this would be a bear flag. Bull flag, or I call it a launch pad from which to launch higher. If they got a dash, means they already did the breakout. Okay, so they broke out of the bull flag. So got a lot of stars here and got a few breakouts as well. So you can see right there, those broke out. So these over the 17 EMA and in a daily uptrend. These under the 17 EMA in a daily downtrend. If they got a star, they're building out a bear flag, or I call it a platform from which to dive lower. All right, let's take a look at the markets. Actually, no, we'll review that a little bit later. I was going to take a look at what happened with the guidance and everything that happened yesterday. Let's go, we'll do this first. Okay, so SPY 10-minute. Okay, you can see the sticks and the 3 and just a little bit of daylight there plotting, okay, up over the 8 EMA right there. So you've got a little bit of daylight. You kind of got to really, you can see it right there now. Okay, you got to zoom in, squint your eyes, and you can see it. Anyways, 10-minute uptrend coming into the close. 2-hour chart. Okay, same thing. Sticks, candlesticks, and the 3 EMA plotting up over that rising 8. Okay, so got some daylight between the 3 and the 8 if you move the VWAP out of the way. Okay, so that's a 2-hour uptrend coming into the close. On the daily candle, hey, new all-time high for SPY. Doesn't get any better than that. We'll put the quad lines on there. Let's move that out of the way. Let's take this off. Make sure we're still on the daily chart. I'm going to zoom way out here. Okay, so back here about a year ago, okay, April 2025, that was the origin of our move. Okay, so we had just made a new all-time high, all right, in 2025, right there. Okay, and then we turn around and really 2025, yeah. So then we turn around and ripped and made another new all-time high in 2025 and made another one in 2026. Actually, we made a lot of new all-time highs in 2025 right there. Okay, and then we had a pullback, made a higher low, ripped, and we just made another new all-time high recently, about actually about 24 hours ago. Okay, so new all-time high on the daily chart. Okay, so it's hard not to be bullish and in an uptrend when you're making new all-time highs. So on the daily chart, okay, this is bullish and in an uptrend. Origin of the move, higher low, rip, make another new all-time high for 2026. Okay, so we got two new all-time highs in 2026. The recent one being yesterday. So there's SPY, weekly chart, bullish and in an uptrend. Monthly chart, bullish and in an uptrend. Okay, so that's SPY. Let's take a look at QQQ. Start with the 10. Okay, you got the sticks and the 3 plotting up over the 8. Looks more like bullish consolidation, or you could call it 10-minute uptrend. Okay, you got a 3-4 candle 10-minute uptrend here. And if you squint and you look right there between the 3 and the 8, got an eensy-beensy little bit of daylight right there on QQQ. I'm just going to call it bullish consolidation on the QQQ on the 10-minute chart. Let's take a look at the 2-hour. 2-hour, same thing. We've got candlesticks and the 3 EMA up over the rising 8. Got some daylight between the 3 and the 8. Got a 2-hour uptrend coming into the close yesterday. This is all in relationship to yesterday. Okay, on QQQ, what do we got here? So this is the high, 64.51. This is the high for yesterday, 64.43. Okay, so inside day, higher low, lower high, closing over the bullish trap, closing over the rising 17, top of quadrant 4. They made a new all-time high, not yesterday, but the day before, or the trading day before. I think that's Friday. Is that Friday? Yeah, that's Friday. Friday, so new all-time high on Friday. All right, so QQQ, daily chart, bullish, top of quadrant 4, bullish and in an uptrend. You got a high, they made a higher high, so they're definitely in an uptrend. And I'll pan way out. This is the origin of the move, same thing. Started about a year ago. Okay, so you can see right here, April, we run up, okay, make a nice base right there, and then we rip and make a new high. Okay, that's QQQ on the daily chart. Weekly chart, obviously, new all-time highs, bullish and in an uptrend. Same with the monthly, bullish and in an uptrend on QQQ. Let's take a look at IWM on the daily. All right, IWM is, let's see what the high is there. The high is 78.13. The high there, 78.24. Higher low, higher high. Closing over a bullish trap. Closing over all-time high anchored VWAP. That's a pink line. Closing over rising 17. That's the dots right here. It's the 17 EMA. Top of quadrant 4. That's going to be bullish up there. Upper third. All right. Top of quadrant 4. Okay, there's a high right here. Well, actually, there's a high right there. And they made a higher high, so that's definitely an uptrend. So bullish and in an uptrend on IWM. Diamond down. All right, let's check this out. Diamond Dow, I think, was an outside day. The high there is 93.49. The high there, 93.55. Outside day for Diamond Dow. That means it made a higher high and a lower low, but they closed inside a bullish trap over the rising, see the dots, 17. Okay, over the pink line, see all-time high, anchored VWAP right there. Okay, over the rising 17, there's the dots in the middle of quadrant 4, so that's going to be bullish. Okay, again, the origin of this move, just like IWM and SPY and QQQ back here in April. Okay, so that's going to be bullish. Now, we've got a high right here that pokes through the 17 EMA. And we made a higher high right here. So that's bullish and in an uptrend on Diamond Dow. Everything's still bullish and in an uptrend. SPY, QQQ, IWM, and Diamond Dow. FNGU is the only outlier here. Let's take a look at FNGU. Now, I've divided the quad lines into thirds, okay, using the Fibonacci retracement tool. Okay, and you can see this is a new rally high. Well, let's pan out here, start with the origin. Okay, so this is the origin of the rally up. Okay, this also happens to be the all-time low, and of course the all-time high right up there. So all-time low, all-time high. So that makes the pink line the all-time high anchored VWAP, because we put a moving average on there. That's the all-time high anchored VWAP. Now, when we measure from all-time low, all-time high, we break this up into thirds. Okay, so upper third's going to be bullish. Okay, lower third's going to be bearish, and the middle's going to be neutral. You can see right here, this is 67%. Okay, that's 33% from the 100% mark. Okay, so 67% right there. So you can see we're not quite over it. All right, we're knocking on the door, but we're not quite in the upper third right there. Okay, and that's what happens when you pull back and your pullback goes past the midpoint all the way down into the lower third. Typically, that's where you wind up for a potential high is right there, right on the upper third. Now, they couldn't quite make it in, but this is a new rally high. So here's all-time low, all-time high, pullback low, which happens to be a higher low. So they may have to consolidate here for a while before they run off and chase down the all-time high. Okay, so there's FNGU. This is a rally high off that pullback low. Okay, so higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap. See the dots over the rising 17. See the pink line over the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay, see the midpoint? That's the dashes right here. Okay, over the midpoint here. Okay, so we're neutral. Okay, we're in the top of the second third, the middle third right there. Okay, we're not even in the bottom of the upper third yet. We're knocking on the door, but we're not in yet. So we're neutral and we're making higher highs, so we're in an uptrend. That's FNGU. Okay, let's take a look at precious metals. All right, precious metals, you can see silver. Okay, not doing quite as good as gold. Gold held up a little bit better. All right, but anyways, here's silver. Lower high, lower low, closed under a bearish trap, under the flat 17 EMA. That's these green dots that turn to red dots, and then back to green, then back to red. Okay, under the 17 EMA. Pink line is the all-time high anchored VWAP. Remember, we're not in the upper third, so we're going to be neutral. All right. All right, and in an uptrend, we haven't made a lower low yet. Okay, so see how we're in this uptrend. There's a high. We made higher highs through here. So we're in this uptrend, but it's not moving up anymore, okay? It's kind of melting down or to the right, okay? So in that dysfunctional uptrend right now. So neutral, dysfunctional uptrend, closing underneath all-time high anchored VWAP, but over the midpoint here, okay? So neutral, but still in that dysfunctional uptrend. For that, so that's for silver. Let's take a look at gold. All right, gold, a little bit better, okay? Both silver and gold, okay, rallied from a point in 2022. So this is gold's origin of their rally. Starts here, starts off slow, and then builds and builds and builds. Okay, so here's gold. Okay, you can see it's all the way at the top of quadrant 4. All right, so that's the upper third, so that's bullish up there. Okay, and they're in an uptrend. They haven't made any lower lows yet. They're coming close, okay? So they're also in one of those dysfunctional uptrends in that price is no longer moving up. It's kind of melting back or over to the right, okay? So they are also caught underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP. They're in the bottom of quadrant 4. That makes them bullish. Remember, it's in the upper third. Makes them bullish and in that dysfunctional uptrend. So that's gold. Let's take a look at USO. All right, USO, nice comeback for USO this week, last week as well. Higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap. Look at this up here. Okay, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap over the 17 EMA. We're in the middle of quadrant 4, so we're bullish. We have a high. We made a higher high, so we're in an uptrend, okay? So USO, bullish, and in an uptrend. Let's take a look at UNG, which never fails to disappoint us. And UNG gapped up and sold off. Higher high, higher low as compared to the previous candle, closing under the bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the 12-month high anchored VWAP, okay? The bottom of quadrant 1, that's going to be bearish. You got a low, they're making lower lows, it's in a downtrend. Okay, so that's a 12-month high. This is the all-time low. And we're knocking on the door of the all-time low down here. Okay, so that's UNG on the daily chart. For all you bottom pickers out there, this would be one to keep an eye on right here, UNG. Okay, so under the midpoint, obviously bearish and in a downtrend. Okay, so here's UNG. Let's take a look at technicals, and we'll move over to the left over here. And we'll start with T2101, okay? So as the market made new all-time highs yesterday, this would be the market breadth or participation. Okay, notice the participation is getting thinner and thinner, okay? So market breadth, not as many participants yesterday as the market made new all-time highs. And what you want to see is people piling on when the market's making new all-time highs, all right? You don't want to see them piling on when the market's making lower lows. That would be a very bad sign, okay? So this is not bullish when the market's making new highs and we're losing more and more participation day by day. Now, making new highs is going to be easier when you got a thin market because there's nobody to get in your way or to blockade you with a bunch of sell orders. So what we're getting is a lot of volatility when you got a thin market right now. Okay, so be careful out there. Use your stops. Make sure you protect your capital. Okay, because we do have a thin market, and it's liable to get like wild and whippy. All right, so just want to point that out, that volatility could increase rather rapidly when you have a thin market. Okay, so T2122, This is April. Notice all of April. This is one continuous line. And notice the line spends the majority of the time over the 50-yard line, or the midpoint right here. So on the bullish side of price performance. All right, and it actually spends quite a bit of that time up there in between the buy zone and the overbought zone. So nice work. So yesterday they made a higher high and a higher low, and they closed inside the buy zone up here. Okay, remember, take a look at this. This can stay up in the overbought zone for 5, 6, 7 days. Okay, there's a possibility for that to happen, and it actually did happen last week and the week before. Okay, you can see where it spent a lot of time up in the overbought zone. Okay, so we're in the buy zone. We closed out the day at the top of the buy zone rather than the bottom of the buy zone like we did the day before or Friday. So this would be, that's bullish up there. You're over the 50-yard line or the midpoint. That's bullish as well. Market's still bullish. Okay, we're getting some pullback today, but the market is still bullish right now. Okay, T2123, that was the all-time high. You can clearly see we're over the crosshairs. That was the all-time high. So new all-time high made yesterday in SPY and T2123. Okay, this is the 4-week new high, new low ratio. Okay, this is T2123, new all-time high. Look at the performance of yesterday's price action. They move up, bullish gap up. Bears never filled the gap all day long. Still got another bullish gap that the bears have not filled right here. Okay, so they still haven't filled this gap from 4 days ago. All right, so bullish gap up, and they held the plank, all right, for 6.5 hours right there. So they moved up and they held the plank. That's a show of strength right there. That's bullish. Okay, when you can plank for 6.5 hours. I don't even know if I can do it for 2 minutes. Okay, for T2123 moves up and holds the higher ground. That is bullish. Up over the rising 200 SMA. That's where you want to be if you're a bull. New all-time high. Doesn't get any better than that. So that's obviously bullish. And in an uptrend, we'll look at the 3-bar chart. I'm going to pull way back so you can see the origin of the rally back here in April. And we run up. Okay, we had a new all-time high in 2024. All right, this is before all of this ever happened. All-time high. Pull back. All right, rallied again from April all the way up and made a new all-time high for 2025. Okay, pulled back, made a higher low, and then ripped and made another new all-time high for 2026. Pulled back, made a higher low, and we just made another new all-time high for the year of 2026 yesterday. And we ended the day, as you can see on the 15-minute chart. Look at that bullish stance right there. So I think we still dig out even higher highs. Whenever I see that, that inspires me to go long right there. That is bullish. When you see it plank up and hold that higher ground like that. The only difference is, again, be careful. Okay. Not a significant higher high, but it is a new all-time high and a nice bullish stance coming into the close yesterday. Okay, T2123, that's the 3-bar chart. Again, bullish and in an uptrend. You can see the 3-bar up over the rising 200 SMA. Top of quadrant 4, bullish and in an uptrend, making new all-time highs. Okay, FNGU on the 15. FNGU made a new rally high yesterday, if you remember me talking about FNGU earlier. So yesterday was the 27th. Okay, so we gapped up, but the bears filled the gap. But the bulls managed to ink out a new rally high yesterday. Okay, closing the end of the day near the high of the day. Okay, so FNGU 15-minute chart new is in an uptrend because you can see here's a high, and we made higher highs. We're up over the rising 200 SMA. It's where you want to be if you're a bull. So we got a high. We made higher highs. That's bullish up there. And that's definitely an uptrend right there. So if I put the quad lines on here, remember on the daily chart, we were almost we're knocking on the door of the upper third. We're neutral on the daily chart, but on the 15-minute, this is as much time as I can encompass on the 15-minute chart. Okay, so we're at the top of quadrant 4, makes us bullish. All right, and we're making higher highs and in an uptrend. You can see a high there. We made a higher high. You can see the high we made there. Okay, that's a higher high. So bullish and in an uptrend over that all-time high anchored VWAP. That's FNGU. All right, let's take a look at our economic package. We'll start off with Max Pain, which happens to be 713 for all the SPY securities. Not securities, options that expire today. I meant options, not securities. SPY options that expire today. All right, and then we got a put to call ratio of 1.9 puts for each call that expires today. Let me refresh it. Sometimes they change this on me. So still 713, still 1.9. Okay, so as far as the economic calendar goes, really light week, okay? Nothing really here to stop the bulls or the bears. We got in a pullback today, obviously, all right? But there's nothing really to stop the bulls from the economic standpoint except for maybe the jobless claims. There's still building of new homes and infrastructure, and everything is still going strong down here in Southwest Florida. So I'm sure it's probably going strong in a lot of the urban areas around wherever you live as well. So today's Tuesday. You can see nothing happened yesterday. We got retail sales 8:30, business inventories 10 o'clock, pending home sales index 10 o'clock, and the Senate banking is going to see if they can confirm Kevin Warsh to replace, forget his name, Jerome Powell. Yeah, I think he's on schedule to replace Jerome Powell. We'll see what happens, Senate Banking Committee. All right, other than that, light day tomorrow, another light day. We got MBA mortgage applications at 7 o'clock, Atlanta Fed business inflation expectations at 10. Petroleum status inventories 10:30 tomorrow. Thursday, jobless claims, Chicago Fed National Activity Index 8:30 as well. PMI composite flash 9:45. Natural gas inventories and status. Let me zoom down, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Kansas City Fed Manufacturing Index at 11, right there. And consumer sentiment on Friday at 10, rig count at 1. You can see a really light week. No CPI, no GDP, no Mr. Powell is speaking. It's a really light week. So there's nothing on the economic front as far as data being released that could disrupt our bull rally. And that's a pretty strong bull rally. All right, right there. So, but we do have some earnings, and we got some really big market cap reporting on earnings. I mean, super big. We'll start off with today. Visa reports tonight. Coca-Cola reports this morning. Novartis reports this morning. T-Mobile reports tonight. Corning reports this morning. Visa. All right. By the way, Corning, as far as fiber optics that are going to be used in a lot of the AI connections, all right? In other words, you want to move data from one hardware component to another hardware component, all right? If it's not like a direct, card, all right, they're going to be using fiber optics. And Corning is probably one of the biggest producer of those fiber optics. If you look at Corning, they are almost a vertical line up, all right? So they are in demand in anticipation of being used to, I'm just going to say it, a lot of the new AI that's coming out. It's all about doing it faster, cleaner, you know. So that fiber optics, and you know that stuff doesn't take up much room at all. I mean, the data they can run through the size, of a pin is incredible. All right, so Visa, 596 billion. They're going to report tonight. Coca-Cola, 321. Okay, there'll be some eyes on Visa. All right, but they're not the tip of the spear. The tip of the spear is always going to be that hardware, software that goes along with AI. AI is the future. All right, so not the tip of the spear, but there will be eyes on Visa because that is banking. All right, and we surely don't want to see too much consumer credit out there, too much consumer debt, really. Novartis, 281. So none of these will probably move the markets. All right, none of them. All right, even though this is about over $500 billion, not really. Okay, but we do got big time market mover tomorrow. Okay, we got two of the alphabets going to report. That's a combined $8 trillion. Okay, that's a market mover. All right, and Alphabet 1 and Alphabet 2 are probably not going to report too much different than each other. All right, so it's going to be huge. $8 trillion is going to report tomorrow. That is going to be a market mover. Microsoft, $3 trillion, another market mover. Amazon, $2.7 trillion, another market mover. Meta Platforms, $1.7 trillion. That's going to be a market mover. AstraZeneca is a big company, $600 billion, not a trillion, but that's still a respectable size company right there. But it will pale in compared to these right here because it's reporting right next to them, all right? On a day on its own, it would be a headliner, but next to these, it's going to be a nobody tomorrow, okay? AbbVie, $354 billion. UBS, $291 billion. KLA, all right, is $237 billion. Banco Santander, $211 billion. Again, a lot of familiar names, but hey, these are going to be the headlines tomorrow night. All right, tomorrow night it's going to be big. Let me just say, if you're concerned about your portfolio, I would definitely want to be hedged. All right, for this report that comes tomorrow night, Thursday. All right, is Apple, $4 trillion. Eli Lilly, $870 billion. MasterCard, $254 billion. Caterpillar. Okay. All eyes going to be on tech right here. Apple. All right. Even then it's got $4 trillion. That's going to be a market mover. Whatever Eli Lilly does probably won't matter much. Apple will probably be the market mover on Thursday. Friday, we got Berkshire, and they always come up with a dash. I don't know if they report on Saturday or they just can't find their P&L, or it's always a dash. They never have the time or of after in the morning or in the evening. So I guess they report sometime, I don't know, maybe late tomorrow night or late Friday night or maybe sometime during the middle of the day. It's still a good size, $2 trillion, okay? All right, so there's Buffett. He did $2 trillion, but just remember, Nancy Pelosi had better performance than Warren Buffett, who went to school for years, all right, to be an investor. And there's our great senators, all right? She wouldn't manage to, no, she was Speaker of the House, that's right. Okay, she had better performance than the professional, all right? I just want to put that out there, all right? So you understand that, maybe not follow this guy, follow that girl over there, okay? So anyways, there's that. And let's go take a look at the markets this morning because that's enough about comments. And let's go over here to SPY. Let's hit it on the 10. And let's get the one over here. All right, with 10 minute, and let's get a clean chart. All right, and let's do one other thing. Here's our guidance from yesterday. Plan to trade a 10-minute uptrend over 713 to the pre-market high 714.40. Okay, I just want to point this out. Okay, the guidance was solid. All right, so here we are in the morning on the 27th. We're on the 10-minute chart. I'm going to pan over. Very first candle right here. We did it really super fast. Okay, very first candle. Okay, 1282. We came up through 713 and slammed 714.40 in the first 10-minute candle right there. Okay, just boom, bam. That was it. All right, and then that was it. That was it. Okay, from there, it was nothing but a chop fest day. You can see there's no candles that break away from the VWAP until you get to here. All right, and then the other guidance, all right, the second part of the guidance was trade a 10-minute downtrend below 712.70 to the support. Okay, so you can see we got price move down, and we didn't get below 712.70 till this one 10-minute candle, which never closed down here. Okay, so we never closed below 712.70. So we had obviously no downtrend below it. So that never triggered. Now what we did come up with is a double bottom, and then a 10-minute uptrend commenced. You had the spike candle. There's the rubber band candle. There's the break of the rubber band candle. And now you've got your 10-minute uptrend to the upside all the way up to the highs or the end of the day right there. So there's your 10-minute uptrend after you break the bullish rubber 10-minute chart, rubber band candle right there. All right? So just want to point that out. Guidance was solid again. All right, so let's take a look at what we got today. Okay, so we got price action. Okay, let's just look at what we see. Post-market price action. And then we've got pre-market price action below post-market price action. Okay, so that's, to me, that's a bearish environment. But, okay, price, okay, let's look at the whole picture. Price has moved up and over to the right. Okay, so if you look at this from the bigger perspective, that's still bullish way up there. Okay, so bearish sentiment or bias this morning. Don't know how low we go. My pivot is, I think, right there, about 712.40 or 712. Okay, see that tail right there on that candle? So below that tail is where I get kind of spooked, as if we're rolling over. This is a pullback. They very well, oh, well, look, we're over here. How come that's not included? How are we way down here, but the candles don't go there? Okay, that's disturbing. I'm sorry, but that's just disturbing. Not seeing candles down here. Now, this is the morning of the 28th, and my SPY's way down here. Why are my candles stuck up there? Let me refresh this, because this is not good. It's not good for me anyways. All right, because I want to see what's going on. I want some candlesticks. So I'm going to refresh this. Okay, I'm going to actually just going to reboot it. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. You know what it was? It probably didn't move it over. All right, so you can see we got price down into the pivot, which is the 712. We're well past the pivot, which was the 712 area. So we got kind of like an exhaustion type move here. Okay, right into support. Okay, see this line right here? This is 710.50, 710.30 support. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see if they consolidate underneath the 710.50 support area, which I outlined yesterday. Well, it was here. No, that's not it. Well, it was here. 710. That was the target yesterday. Was the 710.50, 710.30 area. Okay, so we'll find out if they're going to bounce here. If they consolidate underneath it, we could be looking at another leg lower. In which case, I would be looking to tackle the open gap right here. We got the breakup candle low. This is the breakup candle low. That's 706.47. We've got 704, which is the double bottom right here. 704. These are our downside targets, by the way. Prior identified support, which is we got the open gap. All right, that's 70. Prior identified support, 710.50. Open gap is going to be 709. Gap fill. All right, these are our downside targets, 708.46. Okay, so these are the downside targets if you want to pause your video and take a snap a photo in case we get some continuation of the 10-minute downtrend. It's kind of extended, all right, but doesn't mean it has to stop right now. Okay, it's been going for 4 hours. It might just consolidate and then at 1 o'clock or 12:30 do another leg lower. All right, that's probably what could happen. Currently in a 10-minute downtrend, you can see the sticks in the 3 plotting underneath the falling 8. So you got daylight between the two. All right, so 10-minute downtrend right there. So I'd be interested in shorting a bounce. If we get a bounce back to here, back to the 712 area. But I don't know how low it goes. So wherever it bounces to, I'd be interested in shorting it if it starts a downtrend back underneath 712 area right there. So I would be looking for this to bounce back to 712 and then come back down here and test the 710.30 area one more time. All right, if this double bottoms, we could see a W pattern form and then come back up here to the 715 number. We'll see what happens. Okay, now keep in mind we've been up, all right, for many days in a row. Okay, kind of due for a rest. So we might just consolidate over to the right today, this morning. All right, I'm just saying, but if the 10-minute downtrend continues, so I'm going to want a break of that low, okay, because this is kind of extended right here. We just dropped $5, $6. I mean, we're all the way up here at 716.42. All right, you can see we're down here at 710.40. All right, so there's $6 dip right there. So if we break those lows, that's where I want to be short. Other than that, until a 10-minute uptrend manifests, all right, where they break the bullish 10-minute rubber band candle, probably going to be chop and move sideways. All right, and in which case I will probably trade the bear flag, okay, from the bear flag from the top to the bottom. All right, top to the bottom. All right, so let this bounce, and I'll probably be interested. They'll probably set off the top of the bear flag. This will be the bottom of the bear flag. So look for them to set the top of the bear flag right around 712 area, and I'd be interested in shorting from there down to this area down there. So I'm expecting a bear flag to form. All right, and probably last until maybe 2 o'clock, maybe 1 o'clock, well into the European session. All right, that's what I'm expecting. I am not expecting a V-bottom bounce all the way back to 715. It may happen, but I am not expecting that. I'm expecting them to bounce up to the 712 area and start to form a bear flag. And then who knows where they go from there, and then probably flag out until 1 o'clock, 12:30, 2 o'clock, and then possibly even test the downside one more time to see if they can dig out a lower low. If they fail, then you could get a rally back up to 715. All right, that's what I'm looking for this morning. All right, from 712, rally short it back to the bottom or to the pre-market lows. That's what I'm looking for. So that's my plan for this morning, all right, is to short the SPY near the pivot, and that would be the minor resistance up here. Okay, so near this 712.50 area, short it, and let them set the top of a bear flag that I expect to form. All right, so that's it right there. Any questions? If there's any questions, go ahead and shoot them in there. If not, I will see you guys all in about 35 minutes, and we'll open up the markets live. Trade them live. TC fell asleep. Yeah, I did. Or I didn't move it over to the right far enough, but it looked weird, like right there. So, but we got it. All right. I'll see you guys in 30 minutes. You see my plan. I'm looking for a bear flag to form. I'm interested in shorting from the top to the bottom of the bear flag. And I'm looking for this to probably last, might last all day, probably last till 1:30, and then they'll try to do a breakdown move, I think around 1:30, 2 o'clock. We'll see. All right, thank you.